So the least surprising surprise in World Rugby has been announced. Andy Farrell is to lead the British and Irish Lions in Australia in 2025. Now, supposedly this process took 6 months. A committee, we've got some serious guys on this committee, Brian O'Driscoll, Ian Evans, Nigel Redmond and Sir Ian McGeechan, deciding who the right candidate would be. And I joke, but I can only help but think they were there on day one, looking around going, it's Andy Farrell, right? And everyone's saying yes. And then they're looking at their watches going, well, we've got another 5+ months. Let's decide where we're going to play golf or have lunch for the rest of the time. Yeah, I joke, but I mean, seriously, there can't have been too much debate about it. They say there is, but I don't know. But they had to try and do their job properly. I guess they'd have gone to Warren Gatland and just sounded him out saying, would you be interested if we asked you to tour again? And he obviously said he ruled himself out. It's time for someone else. And I think that was right as well. So the second choice behind Andy Farrell, I guess, would be Gregor Townsend. He's been Scotland coach for a long time, the longest serving Scotland coach. So I guess they would have asked him. You could argue, yes, what's he won? But he has coached, like I said, Scotland for ages. He's coached the British and Irish Lions. And of course, he has played for them as well. So I think he would have been second pick. And maybe if they hadn't got either of those guys, they would have gone for Steve Borthwick, who has coached the British and Irish Lions before. The fairly or very New England coach would be a little bit more experienced then. So I think they got their man. They're very happy they got their man. And you can see that Andy Farrell is absolutely chuffed. He loves this sort of thing, this pressure. He loves the Lions, genuinely pleased, motivated. And there's no real bad words to say against him. I think all the players going will be excited that he is the coach. They'll have a lot of belief in his overall vision. Of course, Andy Farrell is earning a good wedge for this as well, reported around $750,000. So well rewarded, but I'm sure his mind is going to be on winning in Australia. Now, it was interesting. I was listening to Brian O'Driscoll on Off the Ball saying it's a win-win situation. If he wins, great. If he loses, he gets experience. I was kind of more thinking of it as a lose-lose situation, really, where Australia is seen, probably rightly so, as the easiest tour of the three. So he's expected to win. So if he wins, it's kind of expected. And if he loses, it's a little bit of a failure. So I think in some ways it's a bit of a lose-lose. But he likes the pressure anyway, so I don't think it's a problem. But interesting to see if you think it's win-win like Brian O'Driscoll or lose-lose like me. But we will see. So they're playing Australia, who are on a low ebb at the moment. That is, to put it lightly, still no coach after the brief Eddie Jones disaster, of course. Who will that new coach be? Well, I'm probably guessing Stephen Larkham, Australia great. Has coached in Australia for a long time. I think he'd create some excitement, give some ideas, give a lift to the Wallabies at least. So you'd hope it would be a competitive tour. Of course, I think Australia should improve. Of course, they can't get much worse than the World Cup. But anyway, the questions are, of course, around players, but we won't really know that until nearer the time. We certainly can think about coaches, because he will need to start sounding them out pretty soon, and captains as well, looking towards the captain, because they are the core of the touring group. Talking of players, it is worth reminding ourselves that the British and Irish Lions do not have to conform to the individual union selection rules. If a player has recently retired from international duty, they could be coaxed out of it. If they haven't been picked at all, they could be selected, or if they're ineligible because they're playing in a different country, they could be picked as well. So you could see Courtney Laws, he could well return into the British and Irish Lions, having quit England, if you like, or young Joe Hawkins from Exeter, who can't play for Wales, actually going on a Lions tour. So that's going to be interesting nearer the time. Now, last time out, Andy Farrell had just become head coach of Ireland. This time out, he goes with full blessing of the IRFU. Andy Farrell, of course, hasn't just got his feet under the desk. He's well experienced now as Ireland coach, and he would indeed be missing the 2025 Six Nations, because they would lose him full-time to the Lions from this December. So a big commitment. Of course, he's been well compensated, and Ireland, of course, will be compensated for his loss as well. So I imagine one of his underlings, one of his assistant coaches, will step up and lead the Six Nations for Ireland, and probably they'll want to carry on that guy into the summer as well when the Lions are playing. So maybe Simon Easterby or Paul O'Connell will step up to that role, and I expect them not to go on the Lions. So I'm guessing Simon Easterby will be that man. So I'm guessing he is not going on the Lions with Andy Farrell, although I do think Andy Farrell will consider taking a core of Irish coaches with him, because it just makes things a lot quicker to hit the ground running when you're putting these four nations together. So what other coaches would he consider? Well, this isn't an exhaustive list. I'm just going through some options, but of course, head coach of Scotland, Gregor Townsend, well, he might reprise his role from 2021 as the attack coach, but I don't think it went that well. Attack coach-wise, Rob Howley is returning to Wales now after his little hiatus there, and he's got plenty of experience coaching for the Lions as an attack coach, so he might not be a bad shout as well. Another choice, you could definitely go for Mike Catt, who's been working under Andy Farrell for a long time. We know attack is notoriously hard to get going quickly, and Catt and Farrell working so closely together could speed things up there, and I think Mike Catt's earned his chance if it comes. As a defensive coach, you could definitely take Steve Tandy again. He did it in 2021, the Scotland defence coach. He's very good. You could even try and persuade the French Federation to let go, release Sean Edwards for a bit to go and tour with the Lions, although that might be pretty galling, kind of benefiting four rival nations, if you like, plus you'd have to offer them an awful lot of money. So I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be an interesting one if they even tried. Then you've got Jonathan Humphreys of Wales, the forward coach for a long time. He would be a good choice. Neil Jenkins has done the kicking, the skills role before. He'd be a good choice. So there's a lot of coaches out there in contention. He could even dip into the club scene as well, maybe sounding out Ronan O'Gara, who is desperate to get into an international rugby at some point. Currently La Rochelle coach, of course, and yeah, he's ambitious. He'd love to be Ireland coach one day and would jump at the chance of trying to get on that Lions coaching ticket. Now, call me shallow and fickle, but I just can't get out of my head that amazing up and under blunder from O'Gara as a player in 2009. I know I should let it go, but I'm struggling. But the more mature Andy Farrell, I'm sure, would look past that and definitely consider him. So I think the coaching ticket I would go for at the moment under Andy Farrell as head coach are two forwards coaches in Paul O'Connell and Jonathan Humphreys, the forwards being obviously the most important to get right, being a scratch team especially. They would take charge of the line-out and scrum respectively. I think Mike Catt has earned his call up to be an attack coach, obviously a new coach there for the Lions, so that would be exciting for him. And then Steve Tandy again coming in as the defence coach and maybe sharing some breakdown work with Paul O'Connell. So I think that's what I'd go for, but let me know what you think. I don't think they'll be able to get hold of Sean Edwards off of France. And I think it covers most of the national bases. Yeah, no current England coaches, but plenty of English men there, of course. Lions experience and new blood, so I think it's about right, but let me know what yours would be. And finally, let's talk captain, because that is a bit tricky. And dare I say the Lions captain bears even more responsibility than the national captain, because it's such a hard thing trying to bring together a completely new team from four different nations. They'll be setting the tone, bringing that team together and also dealing with a barrage of media responsibility, plus the hostile nature of going to one of the Southern Hemisphere giants. They need to be stoic, they need to be unfazed. A good deal of experience wouldn't hurt. Tricky call. Who are the candidates? Well, from Ireland, I see James Ryan, Josh van der Fleer and Caelan Dolores, just because they're such great players and could be key starters by then. James Ryan sharing the captaincy role at Leinster with Gary Ringrose, so I think both of those guys, a lot of experience, could be a good candidate, but I think James Ryan, the lead one from Ireland. From England, well, Owen Farrell could be a candidate. He may be playing in France, he may not be playing for England, but Farrell Jr. has got plenty of the criteria you'd want from a Lions captain. Even if Farrell Sr. was tempted, I think he might, just avoid it, because you would get calls of nepotism maybe, create a bit of controversy you could do without, a bit more flack for his son. So actually, I don't think he'd do it, maybe not just for those reasons, but that's something to bear in mind. Whoever's going to become the New England captain would be in the fray. Maybe that's going to be Jamie George, Ellis Genge or Maro Itoje. Who do I think is the leading candidate? Well, pretty tricky, but if, say, Maro Itoje became the England captain, I think he could be a good candidate. He's got a really good Lions pedigree, stacks of international experience, could well be a starter, we'll see. But interesting one there. For Scotland, I think there's a clear favourite in Jamie Ritchie. Obviously been Scotland captain for a while now. And for Wales, it's a shame that Jack Morgan isn't playing in this Six Nations, but if he gets himself fit and becomes the regular captain, I think he would be a really good option as well. So my choice, I don't think there's actually an outstanding candidate there at the moment. I think I would go for James Ryan. He'd be around 29 years old, very experienced international, captain Leinster, knows Andy Farrell. It would all click into place hopefully very quickly. quickly, feel quite comfortable. So that's the way I'd go with coaches and captain at the moment. Let me know what you think. Let me know of the appointment. Are you excited? Of course I am. All those comments below, and I'll catch you next time.